All right, y'all, let's dive into productivity. As I mentioned, we got a special guest this morning, Mr. Jay Barrett, Realty South, Jasper, Alabama. Jay's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to dive right into 5 questions and then turn him loose. Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you?
Yeah, Jay's, what you got allergies going, so Jay may have to clear his throat every now and then or take a sip of
No,
water.
no, I'm good. I swallowed wrong. I was trying to eat a cheese and cracker for breakfast before I got jumped on this thing. I swallowed wrong.
All
So
right, well,
I'm
you
good now. I'm
well.
100%. 110. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jay Barrett. I'm with Realty South out of beautiful Smith Lake, Alabama, Jasper. I have been selling real estate since I was 19 years old in Mississippi, which was 1989. When I got my license the first time around. I got my Alabama license 3 years ago and kind of hung my shingle out about 12 months ago and have done well. So I'm excited to chat with you all for a minute and answer questions and hopefully give you a little insight about how we can collaborate together.
So Jay, real quick, that's so you got about 7 million in production last year from Walker County, and then you did like another 3 million in.
I finished the year at 8.7 million with 26 sites total between Birmingham, Smith Lake, and Jasper. We're at 12 and a half million for trailing 12.
I just want to point out for everybody, man, I think we've got some really strong reasons why you're on the call this morning. So number one would just be production very, very fast. We've got several new or newish agents on the call and several that'll watch this replay. And
Sure.
I think it's really inspiring to hear from somebody that, kind of right out of the gate is just kind of shot out of that cannon and just really rockets up to like top producer status. And then also just wanted to point out, like, your time in Mississippi selling real estate, that was a whole different world. That was like
Was a different world for sure. I was in
phone
a small
books.
town similar to Jasper.
Yeah.
I was a hometown boy, so people knew who I was, which was very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't know I'm not from Jasper. I've had to introduce myself to the market. But the first time around when I got my license, there was no MLS. There was no cell phone. There was no internet. We had the Sunday paper. For those that have been around for a while, you had an insert in the back of the Sunday paper that had 1 inch by 1 inch or 1.5 by 1.5. If you really wanted to upgrade your listing, you might go to a 1.5 by 1.5 picture of the front of the house. That was it. A little description, and that was that. That's what we had to go on. We carried that around in our car. And I was pretty successful back then. And I got into financial services, but I've always stayed in real estate without actively selling in the commercial or residential market. So I've flipped houses, I've invested for myself, things like that, rentals, stuff like that. So I decided to get back into sales because I've missed it, number one. And number two, I really saw a need for, my own situation with I have a business that's separate outside of real estate that I turned over to my employees. I work maybe 1 or 2 hours a week in that business, and I didn't want to sit around. So anyway, that's why I started doing what I'm doing. What questions have you got, Jason?
All right, so right out of the gate, let's talk about your productivity and production. So how have you been able to build and sustain such a profitable real estate business so quickly?
Well, it's not because I have a big hairdo, as you can tell. I think the first thing that I did was establish a brand. We have a brand in my other business. It's a dog walking and pet sitting franchise. It's very strongly branded. We brand everybody and everything, and it works well for us. So I kind of came out of that knowing that I wanted to brand myself. So I'm Jay Barrett, realtor, Realty South agent. I put up billboards, which is an investment. I'm spending probably $4,000, $4,500 a month on electronic billboards in Jasper that are up 24/7. And I have not had a person yet that I've met that I did not know that was referred to me or that called me either off the billboards or off of one of my signs that have not seen that billboard before. So it builds, I think, some credibility in the brand, but then you have to back that up, right? So the next thing I did was I took every client, I built that from the ground up, putting them first, period. I don't think about the transaction. I don't think about the sale. I don't think about the commission. I don't think about anything. But what does that client and their family need, whether it be an estate or a divorce or a marriage or a new baby or whatever it is? What are their needs and how can I make that happen for them in the easiest, smoothest way possible with the least amount of surprises and stress? And when you do that, what I have found my success has been they start telling other people. Heck, they'll tell people before we even close, which I do try to like say, hey, let's get this thing closed now. But it's really worked well. I would say 90% of my business right now is referral business. And, I'm trying to work on I set a goal of 10 million my first year. We were a little short of that. I did 8.7 million in 24, but I didn't start selling until really March and April of last year. So I missed the first quarter. Looking at trailing 12, which is what I've been doing, we're at 12.5 million with 40 sides closed. And we're setting a goal. I say we. I use we a lot. I have me and my assistant. I'm a single agent team. There's not anybody at this point working with me. But I will use we a lot because I believe that my appraisers and my lenders and my closing attorneys and my title people and all that stuff are all part of the team that help us make it happen. I develop those relationships every day. But we set a goal of 25 million in 2025. Now I am hopeful we hit the ground running first quarter. We've done in the first quarter, we're number 6 in Walker County. They've not started the top 100 at Realty South. I finished number 50 in the state. For Realty South last year, I was number 1 in Jasper, in the Jasper market. We haven't started that count yet. That starts hopefully in the next month or so. We'll know where we line up in the top 100 for Realty South. But I'm rambling a little bit, Jason. Reel me in.
So the first month of your business, like when you really started selling in that March, April kind of time frame, what did you do? You got the billboards up.
I made phone calls to who I thought would be. I took the time to identify 25 people
Love it.
that I thought would be people that either would buy or sell or would know someone right away that would. And I reached out to them. These are people that are friends. These are people that I could reach out to and, that have been in my house to eat, things like that. Go to my church, or in my very close, I don't know I know there's rings in our sphere of influence. I don't know the ring labels, but this would be my core group, right? And identified them. I'm very careful not to bug them as far as like sending them text messages. They know I sell real estate. I don't need to remind them necessarily. Some of my further out sphere, I do put them in KV Core and get them on drips and stuff like that. That's how I feel like that's what started me. And I really kind of thought I was going to have to start in Birmingham to do what I wanted to do. And I started in Birmingham doing that sphere of influence. And I'll tell you what I found, it's much harder. It was much harder in a bigger city than it was in a small town like Jasper. And so being able to kind of pivot quickly within probably the first month, 6 weeks, pivoted to Jasper because that's where I was getting the most like pickup.
Were you living there at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was living in Jasper. I hung my license at Crestline in Mountain Brook.
And just thought bigger city, more opportunity.
Bigger city, bigger sales. That's what I assumed. And, I'll tell you that my average sale has been about $400,000 in Jasper. I think it's going to be higher this year because I have got a couple lake listings and some higher up land, things like that. I think may adjust that. But, we started out mostly in residential. I did a couple selling lots and things like that. A little bit smaller deal. There is no such thing as a small deal, as a deal.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I sold a $5,000 lot. I was like, well, that was, but I ended up selling them a $600,000 house a month later. You just don't ever know what's going to there are no such things as a small deal. Every client is equal, and you look at it from the client standpoint, treat them well, and you don't know what that's going to lead to, and then instantly. So,
well, I just wanted to point this out. We had a coach, like a team brokerage coach, that right out of the gate, first thing he advised us to do was to identify our top 25. So I haven't thought about that in a while. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
I don't know. I still, if I'm thinking about doing something, either whether it be my personal life or anything else, I don't particularly have like a single life coach. I know there's a lot of people that have success either hiring or having somebody. I try to surround, and this is not something I've done in real estate, but just in my life, try to surround myself with people that I look up to and the people I respect. Because those are the people that whether they regardless of what they're doing and how they're doing it, they're people that I look up to and respect, because when you surround yourself with people like that, you're going to learn and it's going to lift you up as well. That's been my experience. So I've done that pretty much my whole life.
Before we move on to question number two, can you just give us a little insight as to what that conversation looked like, sounded like with your top 25? You just like super real with them and go, hey, I'm getting into
100%.
full-time real estate sales. What can I do to gain your support, your trust, something like that?
I don't even need, I don't think this group, I don't think I even had to say, do I have your support?
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that I'm there for them and they're there for me. I may have said something to that effect, but I really kind of felt pretty confident that these people would have my back. Like I have their back. And this is outside of work and inside of work. I think there were some people that instantly had somebody. I was taking down names and numbers, so to speak, or they were shooting me a text with the contact of somebody and saying, "Hey, tell them I sent you. Heard they were looking for a house, or they might be looking to sell, or they were moving, or whatever." That was probably my first 5 or 6 deals came from just those first 25 conversations.
Holy cow,
You know,
that's amazing.
I mean, and that alone is, I mean, that was a nucleus, because it's really hard when you first start. You know, is like, well, how many sales have you done? Well, I haven't done any yet, but I'd love for you to be my first one, right? And that's an awkward conversation, even though it's honest.
Yeah.
Having you be introduced friend to friend, sphere to sphere, so to speak, to me was easier.
Yeah.
It was something that helped me get started. And it was something that really, it seemed to get traction faster than others that I've heard. And I've had people in my own office that have said, Jay, how are you getting these listings? How can, I'm like, it's my sphere of influence. You know, I've purposely, I make friends. You don't purposely choose your friends, but you can certainly choose who you spend time with. And there's a lot of people I'm grateful for in my life that I'm very fortunate to have in my life.
Well, and I just want to add this one little thing. What I have found in terms of sphere of influence, marketing, touches, nurturing, whatever you want to call it, most of these folks have agents. It wouldn't be unusual for
True.
somebody in your top 25 to have an agent they work with for even decades. And I would just advise people not to take that person off the list, because what I have found is they feel like they owe their personal business. Like whenever they buy or sell a house, they're going to list with this agent. But if you call them and just say, "Hey, I understand you've worked with this, this agent. You worked with Sarah Sue since the 1980s. I'm not expecting you to send me your personal referrals, but if you heard about somebody at your place of business or the grocery store that was selling something, would you consider referring me? Was that some business that I could earn?" Just have that real conversation with them. It'll probably pay some dividends.
I make it more about the relationship than saying, "Hey, I want you to do A and B for me." It is more about, I want your support. I want you to be aware of what's going on in my life as a friend and somebody that I look up to and respect. And if you've got somebody that you are comfortable with referring, or you decide to sell, have a conversation. I may not be the right fit. I've had people that said that they didn't want to jeopardize the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I said, I have a pretty good argument for why I think a friend is gonna have your back more than someone else. But look, ultimately, I work for them, not the other way around.
Love it. All right,
So,
number two. What would you say is your primary focus in your real estate business that yields the greatest ROI? I think we've identified that pretty clearly as your
yeah,
sphere
I
of
think so.
influence. But what's a number two?
I think what I'm doing now to develop, there's a couple things I'm doing. I'm bringing my assistant who works for me full 40 hours a week, and she worked for me in my other business. So I
Okay.
was able to kind of bring her across with me, and she does all my social media. I think she does a great job with my social media. It's tight. I think that's been a differentiator for me, and that's something I don't excel in. So I'm glad to have her doing that. But being a transaction coordinator and being a true assistant is something we're still working on. I think that's going to help me with ROI. I do think that I will be bringing on a junior agent at some point. I have talked to my spouse about doing that. I have talked to others just very, infrequently and very casually, nothing official. But I do think that's going to probably generate in the next, and that'd be a 5-year lookout. like working out 5 years. Immediately developing referral network agent to agent, I think is very important. Developing relationships with a referral network within contractors, plumbers, electricians, appraisers. I'm very, I know the rules about appraisers. I don't cross lines with appraisers when they're appraising a property that I have under contract, but I develop relationships with appraisers too. I don't think it hurts anything to be friendly and to provide anything they ask for very quickly and to be very responsive to them. I try to be responsive to everybody. I think that's something else that set me apart. So, but agent to agent referral, like at Smith Lake, things like that, selling at Smith Lake for those that do, it's a different animal. It's a different experience selling at Smith Lake, and you have to kind of know what you're doing to be effective for your client.
You mentioned to me on a prior call about how you're reaching out to Realty South and saying, hey, because there's two big names, Joseph and Justin at the lake, and typically they get the
100%.
referrals, right?
Wonderful agents, by the way. I've known Justin Dyer for many, many, many years,
And
20 plus years.
and both of those guys would even some of those in some cases they will co-list. Like you don't have to
Oh yeah.
refer, you can co-list with them. But you said like, hey, let me just let everybody know in Realty South. Are you posting like in a Facebook group or Realty South Facebook group? Are you mass
That
emailing
is
these
being
people?
developed. I feel like, it is something that I'm working on this year. It's certainly, I'm getting referrals from Realty South because I'm letting people know that I'm here and that's what I'm doing. And I'm sharing with them why it's good for them. Ultimately, how I do my most effective work when I'm telling someone, whether it be a realtor or anybody else or a client, why it's good for them, not why it's good for me.
Yeah. And
So
like if you
I
got
think that's telling that story is going to get better. I'm planning a series of videos and things like that that'll be targeted specifically for other agents that live out of area.
and like if you got I know Realty South has some heavy hitters in Mountain Brook. So
100%.
those luxury agents, just hitting them up. You're offering a 30% referral fee, which I think is smart. And it's just, you're just building relationships all over the place, whether it's in a small town like Jasper, you're doing it with your vendors and you're doing it with your fellow agents. So question
Let me
number
add one
two.
other quick thing,
Yeah,
Jason, because
go
I do
ahead.
want to make sure that if an agent is watching or thinking about referring, that I mean, I just took a referral for a $19,000 lot. It doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar lake house. I've taken referrals for houses in Jasper. I've taken referrals for stuff in Carbon Hill in Walker County. If you don't know the area as well, it is sometimes a better take the 30% referral fee and have your client be serviced by someone that is a market expert or someone that knows the market. I don't like using expert. There's a lot of people that know the market in the town, but I think someone that does a really good job of keeping the agent in the loop of what's happening, as well as treating their client with spectacular service where they come back wanting to use the agent that referred them again because they had such a good experience buying at the lake or whatever with me.
I want to just make a point about hyperlocal and make sure people didn't gloss over that point. You carved out a niche, right? And so you were double, triple down on Jasper, but you still get business. People are still recognizing you as a quality agent. And plus, I think I would say this would probably be a fact that you serve these people so well in Jasper that they know people in other areas. They know people in Birmingham. They know people in Hoover and Homewood and all these other places. So
I
you're
think
getting
so.
business outside that area.
Yeah, the referrals I've had that I've closed in Birmingham and outside of Walker, which includes the lake and Walker County and Jasper, that's kind of the Walker area that I consider, even though it's sometimes Winston and Coleman County as well. Those have been either people that have sold a house in Jasper and have moved to Birmingham. That was a few of the ones I did last year. So I sold our house here and I sold a house here and then we bought a house in Birmingham in that area. And we've done that a couple times. I've done that a couple times last year. I'm not to the point of referring folks in Birmingham. If it was in Huntsville or Montgomery or other areas or down at the coast, for instance, I have referred a couple of my clients here down to the coast to my condos and things like that. So
One of the things I asked you on like our preliminary call was like, right out of the gate, I was like, Jay, are you a fly by the seat of your pants agent? And you like emphatically said no. I feel like a lot of agents that are on the call this morning and that will watch the replay and see our clips on social media, they should immediately identify that they need to throw the anchor out somewhere. They need to pick a zip code, a town, and throw the anchor out, because the whole, I think, secret sauce around hyperlocal is that it's not watered down. It's not too big of an area where you're a little fish in a big pond. It's about starting small to get big. So find your target area and hunker down. We've got a lot of agents that join us, way more agents that see this, consume this content in other areas, as opposed to joining us live on these calls. But I just don't see it. I don't see them going out and picking a community to serve. And that's how the word of mouth works. But another example would be, if you've got listing signs, open house signs, directional signs, directing people to your listings, if those are spread out over a big geographical area, you're not getting that hyper local magic. And so I just hope that resonates with everybody.
No, I would agree with that. The only thing I would say, Jasper has a sign ordinance that has made us take all of our directionals down. We're working through that right now. So it lost that juice, which I was utilizing a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just something that you just have to work through as an industry. But I will say that, I mean, when I had my first 5 listings up and those directionals and those signs were up and the posts were on social media, that type of energy, I had people like when I was at dinner or something like that, they're like, man, you were just killing it. You were going to town. And whether I really was money in my pocket, the energy out there is important.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that energy when you've got a listing in Coleman and you've got a listing in Birmingham, you've got a listing at the lake. It's better to become a subject matter expert. I think a lot of people would say that in all industries, not just real estate.
I love the way you put that, subject matter expert. But yeah, so it's a difference between being a flash in the pan or a staple in a community, I would think. So let that kind of marinate a little bit. All right, Jay, number 3. What are the 3 pillars, your 3-legged stool, as you call it, of your real estate business that you really, really focus on developing every single week?
Well, this I will say this stool that we mentioned before is still being developed. So
Okay.
it is a stool in progress, and it better be. I've learned as an entrepreneur that the stool is never fully built. It is always going to be developed. It's going to be gone to and continue to be built. But the basis of that comment that I made in our preliminary conversation, sphere of influence by far is the longest leg on that stool at this moment. And that's great. It will continue to be a very strong and will be a developed role. I think the agent to agent referral is also going to be something that I'm going to really try to become the Walker Smith Lake referral source. It's going to be difficult, if not at this time in my life, to try to become the largest agent at Smith Lake. I don't. That's not a goal to me personally. I think it's a wonderful goal, and I think people do a very good job. And there's a lot of great agents out there, and in Jasper as well. I have a tremendous amount of respect for all of the people in my industry. The third leg of that, I think, is going to be developing my sphere of influence within vendors and within making sure that I've got not only a really like somebody I could call plumber, man, got a leak at a house, wait, I need you to drop what you're doing and get over there and fix it. That kind of call. And the way that you get those relationships is treating them well, using them as much as you can, and having, and I've gotten a lot of contractor referrals from my sphere, whether it be my landscaper. Hey, these folks told me they're moving. They got a new job. I told them that you're going to call them. And I said, great. But those types of referrals to me are just as important as my sphere of influence. That's almost a secondary or different sphere of influence. I think a lot of people would consider that to be the same, but I am developing it a little bit different.
All right. So recapping just a little bit here, in case anybody is not paying attention. Hyper local. So pick a place. Pick a place, claim your territory. Okay. Dive deep. Go an inch wide and a mile deep on the subject matter. What I heard from number 3, Jay's answer to question number 3 was spend some time working on your business. We haven't talked about this, I don't think, but you've got the $10 million kind of benchmark hit, but your goal for this year was 25 million.
Correct.
So you need to kind of carve out time to work on your business because sphere of influence could be 10 million. Your agent to agent referrals could be 10 million. Mastering that CRM and, really doing like a 33 touch through your CRM could be another 10 million. So I think it's really important to, spend some time. We know agents just are so focused on working in their business, they don't spend near enough time working on their business. So I think that's what I got from number three.
Yeah, if I can generate $700,000 in income for myself, that'll probably be very happy with that to sustain that.
Yeah, and you're making right now
That quarter of a million last trailing 12.
yeah, so you're doing more than attorneys are doing making in Jasper,
I wouldn't say that.
Well, a lot of them.
Tell people this all the time in my office. Look, this is a hard market. And we closed fewer transactions. And I don't want to give the exact stat, but it
Mhm.
was something like the lowest number of transactions were closed since like the 90s,
Yeah.
something like that. It's a hard market, but it is not an impossible market.
Yeah.
So you just got to work at it.
I think this would be a great way to frame this by saying you're taking a hard market and you're making it impossible by not being hyper local, by not identifying a top 25 in your business, by not branding yourself, not having a strong social media presence, not getting out in the community and developing relationships. That's that's the thing. I mean, we're overcomplicating it. And I
I
think
think so
once
in some
agents,
ways. I see that. And I
yeah.
would also add that one of the things that have tried to do that I've is try to give back more than I take in my community.
Mm.
Get involved with the nonprofit. Get involved with like I'm involved with Jasper Main Street. I'm on the board for Park of Walker County. Try to help out as much as I can with Walker Area Community Foundation. Things like that. People it not only gives to the community, but it also in my church. I serve them as a leader in my church. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can give back in the community that will benefit the business. You may not be doing it strictly because of your business. I think that's not necessarily the right thing to think about when you're doing it, but give more than you take, I think is another thing to add to what Jason's saying there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we went through presidential election cycle last year. In the months leading up to the election, I was just preaching like if you're a Republican, go volunteer. If you're a Democrat, go volunteer. You're gonna get a deal out of it at the very least, and you're gonna build relationships and you may build some lifelong friends. So
I do want to say
Alex,
one thing. I
yeah,
have to say this.
yeah,
I am hyper non-political
yeah.
on social media. I don't share stuff. I don't talk about stuff. I don't talk about stuff. I learned that in financial services because I used to go sit with CEOs and CFOs in a former life when I was working financial services, and I was just drilled into me. You let them talk. If they want to talk to you about politics, talk to them. I mean, you can nod and stuff, but don't spew your political beliefs at clients and people. And that's my advice. I found that is you're going to put somebody on.
Yeah. So, go volunteer. We're going to have the same opportunity in 26. Go volunteer. Just don't make a big deal about it. But
Yep, that's it.
find these organizations, go volunteer. We've got like Alex Ruiz. I've been telling him, like, there's so many like Latin focused organizations in the greater Birmingham area. Find one that's doing great work and just volunteer your time. It's going to be, like you
It's
said,
rewarding if nothing
yeah,
else.
super rewarding. It's just going to be rewarding on a lot of fronts. All right, number four. I love this. So Jay has a friendly first approach. That's kind of like your mantra of your business. How does that help you grow your brand? How does that help you grow your business?
It's friendly first.
Friendly
I just want to make
first.
sure I heard you right. Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Go ahead. Cool. I mean, I'm all about pets, so that would be fine. That's my other business. So all about pets.
You're not
I
a cat
think
person, are you, Jay?
I'm not a cat
Okay,
person.
thank
See, I
God.
just alienated half the world saying that out loud. So, I mean, just learn from that lesson. All the cat people out there are going to use another agent. Anyway, I will keep that personal opinion to myself around clients. I love all animals. How about that? I think friendly first is being real. I think if you are real and you have empathy and you put yourself in their shoes first, out of the gate, first phone call, first text message, think about what you're saying to them and how it's being perceived. And if you put them first and they feel that from the get go and continue to feel that, that it's not just about a sale or a commission for you, but you're really wanting him to help, either help them get through if nothing else, a different situation. I work with a lot of divorced people. I work with a lot of estates that have lost a family member, things like that. You have to have empathy for that first, in my opinion. And that really gets off. I mean, I think too many agents go into it knowing if someone has passed away, and then they lose sight that this is a loss for them. It's a loss if it's a divorce. I mean, it's just there's a lot of things you have to. In my opinion, that's what has made the whatever you said, friendly first, a reality for me. I think it's just kind of how I run my other business. So it's been natural for me to run this business the same way, but it has been very successful. And that's the feedback I get from closed transactions. When I ask for feedback, that's the feedback that I get most often, that I was real, that I was transparent. I communicated in a positive way that was effective and efficient.
What else? What else is there in terms of like building a brand? If you want to have control over the conversation that's being had about you in rooms you're not in, boy, that sounds like some great talking points I would love people to associate with me.
Me too.
Friendly, empathetic, great communicator, really strong. But this extends well beyond your clients. I mean, it's just like everybody. Like we were having a conversation. Like if you take an $80,000 listing, that $80,000 seller is getting the same service as an $800,000 seller or one point something million dollar
Yes.
seller on the lake.
They
And
do
then
for me. I mean, not. I mean,
yeah.
I can't speak for anybody but myself. But that I have found that, and those, like I said, I'm not kidding about it was less than $10,000 lot, and it turned into a $600,000 sale a month
Well,
later. It was
and,
cash sale to me.
and
So
you're doing it with agents too. Like I love what you said about like when you go out after a day of showing homes, providing thoughtful feedback. Don't make the
yes,
agent hound your ass for 72 hours or 2 weeks to get that
you
feedback.
know. This is a good. You and I talked, Jason. You and I got off when we were at our initial conversation about this call. That's something that I try to do. I don't know if it's part of my business plan or not, but I do think it's been effective for me. Is I feel like in our industry, across even within offices, I think we just as agents, we just need to lower our fences just a little bit. I mean, we can be friendly competitors, but we can work. We're gonna accomplish more collaborating and working together by sharing ideas. It's not gonna hurt your business to learn from other agents, whether it be And I work with Keller Williams. I work with you all. I work with anybody that I have a relationship with, whether I'm doing a deal together or not. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to collaborate. I sent two listings to another agent in another organization because they had asked me about my listing. And I said, no, I don't think that will work. Well, this morning I was just on Zillow, like doing what we do, doing the hot sheet stuff. Popped two listings over to that agent because I was like, look, these might work.
Time out.
Go ahead. Uh-oh. I'm in
No,
trouble
no,
now. I've
you're
said
not.
it.
So, but you said, doing what we do. What we got to address this for a second.
Uh-oh. All
What does
right.
that? What does that mean? Listen. So, on these calls, I've been doing a weekly call for years now. The day of the week's changed, but we're doing an hour every week. I'm on here talking about the two pillars of the real estate business through the lens of the consumer. So when the consumer says, hey, I need to buy, I need to sell, I need to find somebody for my sister in wherever, Miami, they're looking for agents that have strong market knowledge and strong marketing skills. That obviously and absolutely does mean, a strong brand for yourself. But every morning, what are you doing, Jay, to keep up with what's going on in the market besides looking at Zillow, or is that all you do? Look at Zillow? Because I'm
No,
telling
I
you
mean,
this.
I do look at Zillow a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Zillow, I don't need to use the dirty word, but yes, I use Zillow a good bit. And I use KV Core to share property with clients because I want to keep them in KV Core as much as possible. And that's where we set everything up for searches and things like that. But I use Zillow personally because I just find the interface easier to work with. I mean, some people use Flex. I mean, we're on Flex. You're in Paragon and in Birmingham. Zillow also pulls all that together in one place. So there's just a lot of reasons. But with all that being said, I am looking for. I set up a new search for every lead that I have in Zillow. That's how I do it. Now, this is not going to them. This is coming back to me. I also go out and preview property. I go out and preview property almost every day. If I can't see it, I cannot sell it. Photos do not do the job. I have to be able to walk through it. And especially if I'm going to show the house, I don't want to be walking in now. Where's the kitchen? I mean, so I go see the house before I show it. Now, if there's, and I will say that that's not 100% rule. That's a goal, not a law. I will show a house if I've not previewed it before, but I'll usually tell the buyer, look, not been in here yet. We just set this up 10 minutes ago. We're going to go look at it together. We're going to learn about it and we're going to, we'll find out what we need to find out about it. But if I'm planning a day, I'm going to have seen every single house I'm showing in advance.
So I just want everybody to kind of think about this. It's much easier for Jay to do that in like Jasper, Walker County than it
Correct.
is Jefferson County, If you talk about Birmingham Metro, that's Jefferson County, St. Clair County, Shelby County. I mean, holy crap. You want to talk about a small fish in a very big pond, but also just think about if you're trying to go preview listings. So I tell people, in addition to, planting their flag in that hyper local spot, that whenever possible, like we can't, some weeks we're slammed, some weeks we're slow. It's much easier to get out and preview the listings on a slow week. But we also talked about that. We talked about how no 2 weeks in real estate look the same. So some weeks are going to be just insane. You're going to have fires to put out. And some weeks you're going to be like, well, what do I need to be doing today? It's kind of slow. Well, I'm going to work on my business. I'm going to preview some listings. Like Jay's getting into KV Core. He's going to devote some time to KV Core. He's not just going to sit on his hands. But there's a lot of benefits to being a hyper local agent. So
Subject matter expert.
I
You
hope
have
that's
to know the market.
I hope that's resonating. Yeah, Jay, you're killing it this morning. All right, let's get you out of here. Question number 5. If you were to go back in time, what advice would you give, if any? Because it sounds like you really don't need a whole lot. But what advice
No,
would
don't
you?
say that. I appreciate the compliment very much, and I'll accept the compliment. But I learn every single day, and I think I'll hang my hat up when I stop learning.
Anything recently that you feel like you
Yeah,
screwed up or could have done better, or should
trust
have
me.
done
There's a
sooner?
lot of I have a week-long conversation with my 1989 self. But a year ago, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think I would have started sooner. I love what I do. I
Mm,
really love what I do. And the other thing I would do is I'm not trying to play into Jason's hand here, I promise, but I would
you're
absolutely
doing well.
tell myself to plant the flag using his terminology, and really not be scared of a smaller market. There's a lot of business and a lot of relationships to be done in a smaller market. And I'll tell you, there's hundreds of agents in Walker County. We're not short on agents. I forget the number, but it is a lot of
A
agents.
lot of good ones.
There's a lot of good ones. No, absolutely. No, no, no. I'm not saying there's not. I have a tremendous respect, and I really enjoy working with just about everybody in the industry. I mean, everybody that I've met has been wonderful.
So the answer to that question was, from what I heard, Jay, is you would have spent less time focusing on Birmingham and you would have
Correct.
planted that flag in Jasper way sooner.
I would have done it sooner, and I would have started. I look, think there was a part of me, even though I've done it before, that was like, am I going to be able to do this again? And I have, and I feel like being able to help a client. And I know this is going to sound cheesy, but it is the absolute truth, and I'm being sincere. There's no better feeling than sitting around a closing table. Not because you get the check, which is nice, obviously, but it is nice to take that photo, and it's nice to hear about plans, and it's nice to hear about their kids are going to both have their own bedroom now, or they're closing out an estate for a parent that they're lost. They're going to be to move on and have some assets or whatever to do that with. There's just a lot of things that feel good and are worthwhile in helping somebody do.
one thing that I'm verbalizing, like in the vein of that, the thought process of you being like super real, I will tell people, listen, my goal here, what other industry where do you have the opportunity to sell, but also potentially, build a really meaningful relationship? So I'll just tell people, like, listen, my goal here is that we're friends. After this transaction, like it's not the end of a relationship, it's the beginning of a friendship. And if I'm doing something ever to jeopardize that goal, I need you to let me know. Because at that closing table, I want to high five, I want to hug, I want to be a part of it. But I also want to, make a new friend in the process of doing this. So really, really strong, Jay. I appreciate you so
I've
much.
also, I'll be honest with you, I feel like if you do the right thing, the friendship's going to come. You don't have to ask for it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jay, jump off. Give us some time to talk about your behind
Have a
your
great day.
back.
I appreciate y'all so
Thank you
much.
so much. All right, y'all. What did you gain from that? What questions do you have? Promise. I just selected Jay. Jay's been somebody I've been working on for several weeks now to get him on the call. He's very busy. I just had to follow up, follow up, follow up. And into last week, just put some little bit of pressure on him and said, hey, do you think Monday is a day we can make work? And he just played into my hand and reinforced so many things that we had been talking about for so many weeks on this call. So, Alex, if you need a game plan, put the flag out. Okay. Is that Fultondale? Is it Gardendale? I don't care, but put the flag out. All right. So, anything, let's see. Oh, we got some in the chat here. Teresa, how is he advertising that he takes referrals, and does he offer to give more on referrals? I heard 30%, wasn't sure about what he said. So basically, what he's doing, Realty South is a massive company, right? But you don't have to be a member of a massive company to do this. What he's doing is reaching out to agents that he sees are top performers in their hyperlocal marketplace. And he's reaching out to them and going, hey, I just want you to know, just in case you don't know, that while I focus on Jasper, I live in Jasper, Jasper is my target market. I also list and sell homes on Smith Lake. So instead of sending those referrals to a Justin Dyer or a Joseph Carter, send them to me. Give me a seat at the table. It's brilliant. I know a lot of agents that do this. My buddy Colin Krieger, he prospects to agents. A lot of his business is agent to agent referrals, and he goes to a lot of conferences, a lot of little state run type of deals in his like real estate training stuff in and around his state. He comes over to Birmingham 2 or 3 times a year and just will randomly pick something to attend and just shoot the shit with agents. And he'll be like, hey, I'm over in this. He does this. He's primarily Columbus, Mississippi, but he lets people know, hey, I also do business in the Tri-County area that includes markets like Starkville, where Mississippi State is. So that's what he was talking about there, agent to agent referrals. Okay, so it's identifying yourself as an expert in that area or having expertise in that area, but a lot of it is content driven. So, I would, if you haven't already, I would definitely friend him on Facebook. No other thoughts, comments, or questions on that? I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? If you want to produce, sell, bring in, $250,000 in gross commission earnings in a calendar year, I just don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just let's follow, Jay's lead, follow his example and just do exactly what he's doing. There were several things that we didn't get a chance to talk about this morning that were interesting. Hopefully we'll have a chance to get Jay back on a future call, and because I think we can make this call specifically about this one area, but he does not do open houses. He does broker open houses, and he is like relentlessly religious about this, the broker open house. He feels like he can reach more people. Well, first of all, okay, let me point this out real quick. The consumers can come to the broker's open house and often do. Okay. But he feels like he can maximize his time and the benefit to the seller. Like he can 10x that or 3x that, whatever it is, through inviting really productive agents to his open house. And he does that. He gets them to come by doing something special, like having some really good food there. He's built this reputation. Hey, you go to Jay's Broker Open, he's raffling off something, or he's going to have some really good food there, wine and cheese, whatever it is, and it's an event. We're going to have a really good time. It's really enjoyable to go to Jay's Broker Open house, and then he's getting some more expert kind of level feedback for a seller. So everybody is expressing their gratitude for whatever he's done to make that event special, whether it's, something great to eat or some kind of great giveaway or whatever it is. To really provide, he's motivating them to provide some great feedback to a seller. Anissa, did you have something? So here would be my advice for y'all, and then I'll let you go, is you need to pick a community to get heavily involved in. You need to pick a community to get heavily involved in and to heavily understand. Heavily understand. We are in the 5th day of May. It's Cinco de Mayo. Today is a perfect day if you've got plans to go celebrate the holiday. Before you do that, you could do some market research. You could pick a territory, right? And then do some market research and then share what you learned from that research. So every month, we Jay and I talked about consistency a lot. So we barely scratched the surface with him this morning, but consistently at month end and the beginning of the next month, you are sharing data from what happened the prior month. And it's just really, really telling. If you looked at the graphic that I created for the lake for April, it would kind of be disturbing. If you put the March and the April graphic side by side, it could really, I think, give people the wrong impression. And maybe if I'm a Smith Lake seller, I may go, man, now's not time to sell. Market activity is declining in the hottest time of the year. Sales numbers, everything's going in the wrong direction if I'm a seller. And if I'm a buyer, I might go, oh, shoot, I might just need to sit on the sidelines another couple months to just see how low the prices go. So I just really dove in to the overall data and found that there were like 3 or 4 sales that were very, very low that drove a lot of that data down. So I was quick to point out in the text of my post, like, hey, it may look like the market's declining, but actually there were 8 sales over, at $1 million or more. And here's the data around those sales. 95% sellers, accepted an offer within 95% of their asking price. So that list price to sold price ratio is really important, in addition to days on market, average selling price, and the like. And so that might be a good time to pull out the median data instead of the average data when you've got low sales that are really skewing the high sales downward. So pick a territory, start communicating market research. What is the market doing in this territory? It's about positioning yourself as an expert. Go out and see these homes, preview homes, and that's going to give you content opportunities. Show people this is what you do every single week. You're in the MLS, you're on Zillow, you're doing market research, you're getting out in the marketplace and doing research. You're getting out there and you're helping promote local businesses. You're volunteering somewhere. If we drew a line in the sand this morning and said, all right, we're going to do this for 60 days. All right. So the rest of the month of May and the month of June, we're going to commit to this process. And then we're just going to see where we are at in our life and in our business at the conclusion of this 60-day case study. It could be life-changing. But I think that one thing some of you that are on these calls more consistently than others need to recognize and address is that from week to week, you're not making any real significant changes. You're not getting consistent in several key areas. You haven't planted your flag. You're not doing the market research. You're not doing the previews. And I don't know if you're wondering why things aren't happening faster, or are you holding your bank account to your standard, your work ethic, your process, the systems you're building around your business? What's your day look like? What's your week look like? Is that a reflection, an accurate reflection of your bank account? Are you doing enough? Are you doing enough? Are you running the plays that work? I'm telling you, these are the plays that work. Plant that flag. Don't try to be the jack of all trades. Don't think that if you plant your flag, it's going to pigeonhole you and people aren't going to call you. Like if you plant your flag in Helena, people aren't going to call you to do business in Gardendale. It's just not the case. Okay. You need to plant your flag so that it centers you, right? It grounds you in a market and makes it much more manageable. I can go out and preview homes in Gardendale consistently, way more effectively than I could just saying, hey, I'm the Metro Birmingham specialist. And we don't need to be that. And we can never, I think, you know, be anything other than a needle in a haystack by trying to just do the biggest market possible, or to have the broadest expertise possible. There's no way I can be a beach agent and a lake agent, like top producer in simultaneously in those two areas. I got to pick something and I got to run with it. All right, y'all. 1 minute left. Have I missed anything in the chat? Doesn't seem like it. I appreciate y'all's attention this morning. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'll be posting the recap soon. Hope you guys have a great week. Call me, text me, email me if you got questions about the call today or anything else. All right, see ya.